Evening, all. Welcome. Like I say, I did say I would do a live stream when I was back from Manchester. So here I am. Yeah, what did I miss? what did I miss? I understand a certain someone got suspended. Oh, I have to say, this has yet again been a really strange moment for the whole Lee Anderson story. And it's just taken another twist. The Big On, good morning to you. Good morning indeed. But yes, good morning, good afternoon, wherever you might be. Welcome to our little casual stream. Enzo, hello to you. Like I say, come on down, sit on down, and let's have a look at this, because this is another twist that has gone on in this Lee Anderson conversation. And I will say this now: I am very surprised Sunak actually let. I am very, very surprised he let, or at least suspended him, because there's been so many other times where the Tory MPs could have been suspended, and it's just like, whatever, let them get on with what they're doing. Just let them crack on. You're like, what? So it wouldn't surprise me if this becomes potentially an attack option, because you can make a case that, well, you've suspended Lee Anderson, but what about these other people? Exactly right. Yeah. Truss and Braverman. And not just them as well. There's plenty of other Tory MPs who have done stuff that have been like, yeah, we'll say that. No trouble from us. I've made a video about it going out tomorrow. And annoyingly, because of the new information that's come out, I'm like, I don't want to record it because I thought it was good, because I like the point that I'm trying to make in the video about it's Rishi Sunak trying to establish some sort of authority going into the general election. But we'll save that for tomorrow for you. One Angry Pagan, hello to you. But it's weird because the new stuff that's come out is that the reason he was suspended wasn't because of his comments. Oh no, that's not what got him suspended. What got him suspended was his refusal to apologize. So this sets a really strange message, because apparently it's okay to make those comments, but you can apologize and everything's hunky-dory. Yeah, definition of post-event gaslighting, Oliver Dowden this morning. Oh, absolutely. His comments were, I refuse to be drawn in about his comments, whether they were Islamophobic or not. Hold on, let me go to the web and find the BBC article, because I'm sure the BBC did something like that. Yeah. Refusal to mourn the words I said before. Yep. Thank you very much, Angry Pagan. Yep. He was always a temporary useful oink for the toffs. Oh, absolutely. Lee Anderson had long since passed his usefulness, because it does not look like he was going to re-win his seat. So Suspending him, it's no big issue to the party. Yep. Cousin it, yep. Racists never apologize. If 30p joins reform, that will also reflect on Tice. Would not shock me if he went to reform. I would be willing to put money on Anderson joining reform by the end of this coming week. Because remember, not too long ago, we had all those offers from Trice trying to supposedly tempt over Tory MPs, saying, you know, if you jump ship, if you come and join us, we'll give you what was it, 5 years worth of pay in that line, from what they said. Now, of course, Trice denies that these offers were going around. But hey, Anderson's technically no longer part of the Tory party, so if he's an independent, then he can act as he would like. So, honestly, it would not shock me if he went to reform. I hate to bring this subject up, but do you think the speaker is still safe in his position? We'll see. If he survives the week and there's no confidence, yeah, I think he'll be fine. But that motion was just an entire mess. Everyone wants a ceasefire, just not your ceasefire. And I'm going to say it, but the SNP clearly doing that for political purposes, trying to cause a split in Labour. Clearly doing that on purpose, trying to cause a split in Labour. And they're going to try it again. I think they're bringing up another. Well, they want to have a debate now on what to do about this, which raises a lot of questions. Because remember, my position right from the start of all this for people calling for a ceasefire was, okay, you are going to call for a ceasefire, then what? Like, what is your plan after that? Because as we have made on this channel perfectly clear time and time again, Israel's not going to listen to us. Neither is Hamas. They do not care if we pass a ceasefire motion in Parliament. They do not care. And I know that's shocking because it does just go to highlight, I think, the powerlessness of our politicians in this situation. But that's something that should be highlighted. Just how powerless. Now, it's not that you shouldn't, bring attention to this, shouldn't, protest about it. Absolutely. Go for it. But have a plan. Have an idea of what a ceasefire should look like. What stuff we need to do to make it sustainable. What stuff do we go and make the peace a lasting one so that this doesn't happen in like another 5 or 10 years? And bear in mind, this is exactly the same thing I say when we talk about Ukraine. Exactly the same thing. How do we get a peace in Ukraine that ensures that Russia just does not do this to Ukraine again in another 5 or 10 years' time? How do we know it doesn't foment rebellion in another part of Ukraine and then just go in, say, oh, we're only helping to protect those Russian speakers? So how do you do that? How do you go on about and ensure that happens? And yeah, afternoon, Patrick. Ceasefire means talks. Exactly. there should be some form of talks, but what exactly are they going to talk about? And at the end of the day, we're not involved in those talks. Those talks are primarily going to be between Israel and whatever entity comes out of this. And I'm not even sure the Palestinian Authority is going to be the leading entity in those talks. Because honestly, the entire situation is becoming such an awful mess for it. Jane Lockwood, afternoon. One Angry Pagan. For me, at this point, calling for a ceasefire just feels like patting ourselves on the back for being morally right, whilst doing absolutely bugger all, materially speaking. Call for a halt of arms sales, etc. Yeah, we could do that. Spain, I think, has recently just done this, I believe. I think it's Spain that's ceased arms sales to Ukraine. Well, not Ukraine, Israel. So what I've said is, yeah, all those, all those arms that were meant to be going to Israel, how about we just send it to those arms to Ukraine instead, because they need them more than Israel. Billy Kershaw, evening to you. Dave W, what you need is a background with a nice open fire and cozy. More cozy that way. Very true. Apologies for bluntness, just seriously fed up with the bickering. Me too. And the S&P do no favors in this, because their only reason for doing this is for their own political gain. They are doing it on purpose to try and ensure that they can retain some of their seats in Scotland, because voting at the moment doesn't look particularly good for them. And let's be honest about that. That's the only reason they are trying to, once again, bring this up, this motion. Because we could stop arms sales. Cameron's brought this up, that if they go into Rafah, they'll suspend arms sales. I think that will be right. But when you get situations like this, just as we have in Ukraine, this once again goes to show you the power of having international solutions and strong international bodies. That's what we really need. That's really what we need. Those strong international institutions and countries working together in that regard. Craig, evening to you. Attila, good evening to you as well. Ceasefire means meaningful talks leading to a two-state solution. But there's a long way to go around that. I mean, you've got at the moment Israel. Well, you've heard people in the Israeli government, Netanyahu himself has said this, and other Israeli ambassadors have said this on TV. They don't want to be seen rewarding the Palestinians, giving them their own independent state. Now, this is something that should have happened a long time ago, but that's the Israeli position on this. So these talks and what they're going to be, it's going to be very difficult. It's going to be very difficult indeed. I'm under no illusion that these talks, if you do get a ceasefire, are going to be incredibly difficult. There's rumors, bear in mind, around that talks are happening. The Israeli spy chief has apparently gone to France this weekend to have talks, although they've denied that. But why is your top spy in France? Just saying. Just saying, guys. And just saying, Just saying to you, hello. Oh. Blue Badger 88, evening to you. Ben Dracos, evening to you as well. Evening, evening, evening. Iran would make sure that the ceasefire fails. I don't know whether it's 100% in their interest for ceasefire talks to fail, because you've still got the issue of the Houthis in the Red Sea. Because I will tell you this now, there's no guarantee that the Houthis stop. There is no guarantee that the Houthis stop. And you've got China putting pressure on Iran to stop supplying the Houthis. So we'll see what happens there. But opening up, I think, talks with Iran, looking at re-signing like the Iran deal and things like that. Although, I don't know, you probably won't get it maybe from America at the moment. But certainly like Europe, looking at signing like a deal with Iran, maybe sort of unfreezing a lot of the Iranian interests, basically saying, hey, knock off, supplying these people, and we'll look at, undoing sanctions, etc. I think that would potentially be a way to help solve some of this as well. Certainly give a lot more power to the more moderates in Iran as well on that front. Craig, worrying thing is that the Netanyahu government managing to isolate Israel enough that people sort of pull in around the world, pull around the world government promising to protect them from a hostile world. Yeah. Netanyahu's out of power. Oh, he's absolutely out of power. He's desperately trying to hang on, desperately trying to hang on to power. And stay out of prison as well, because he has a lot of corruption charges. A lot of the corruption charges following him. That is, yeah, that is so weird. Cherry Rap. What Labour did what Labour did hijacking the SNP opposition day was an insult to the people the SNP represents. Labour has / had ample opportunities to put its own motion, one of its own 17 opposition days. Well, why didn't the SNP go to Labour and sort one out? Because what happened there was everyone wanted a ceasefire, just not your ceasefire. I mean, the Labour motion gave the SNP what they wanted. It was a ceasefire. They've got a ceasefire. All it was the SNP playing politics because they wanted to start a split within Labour. They want to try and help them win seats up in Scotland. That is what it was all about. This is why we're seeing another debate on this. Now, they've said that they want to see action on this, which, okay, good. But I will reiterate what I have said, not only just recently, but what I always say about, when we're talking about Ukraine on this. If you want a ceasefire, you've then got to say, well, then what do you do? What do you do about how do you achieve those talks? How do you get the hostages free? How do you sort of get both sides to come together and talk about this? There's so much in and around this stuff that would need to happen. And a lot of people have been screaming for the past couple of months, quite understandably, for a ceasefire, not really understanding what would have to go into that, what that would mean, and what would have to come after. And that still is not one thing people have thought about. And you don't see a lot of those people talk about, which is really disappointing. Really disappointing, because it's the exact same attitude that a lot of people on the left that I've criticized, especially Stop the War Coalition, that I've criticized them on when they've called for having a ceasefire in Ukraine. So, and we've also got to acknowledge the fact that Israel and Hamas do not care if we pass a ceasefire motion. You know, I will just say that now. They do not care. Because do you think they're listening to us? No. They couldn't give a damn what we do. What matters to them is America, and ultimately it is America that can very, very much so have influence here. Unfortunately, that hasn't happened. And we've now got to sort of try and put pressure on certainly Israel more. We can look at stopping arms sales to them. That would be something I would be quite happy with, because, as I've said before, well, now we've stopped selling arms to Israel. Guess what? All those arms, we can start shipping them off to Ukraine. Spain's recently stopped arms sales to Israel. I would say, and I would want Spain to now start sending those weapons that were meant for Israel, start sending them to Ukraine. Because I'll tell you what, Ukraine needs them more than Israel does. Yeah, where's Biden's call for UN statement? This is something Biden could do. Biden, if he wants to do something about this, Biden could go to the UN and say, right, okay, UN should sort this out. That would give him a lot of breathing room, and you know, back what they'll do. But we'll see. Yeah, that's very true, Maggie Pie. Israel doesn't listen to anyone. Exactly. This is what a lot of people need to understand. Israel doesn't listen to anyone. And you are right. Like an out of control geopolitical teenager. Yeah. It's like there's Israel and then there's North Korea all the way up here. Just North Korea, just the height of sheer geopolitical teenagerness. Except, you know, they've got, well, so does Israel. They've got nuclear weapons. UK military recruitment numbers jumping up, good or bad? Good. To be honest, I think we're going into a lot of danger points. Going into a lot of danger points on this. So it'd be good to have people on that front. Oh, actually, let's check in on this. Let's see where that Ukraine aid is in the house, because I haven't looked up on this for a while. I know that it's probably still in limbo, so it wouldn't surprise me if that's still where it is. An aid package. 7 days ago, Biden confident. Anything more recent news? Denmark's done really good stuff, by the way, on this. Like, let's just go over this. Because honestly, what Denmark's done, I think, is really good for the aid for Ukraine here. Hang on. There we go. There we go. So yeah, Denmark unveils Ukraine aid package, urge allies to give more. Danish Prime Minister Mette Frederiksen and Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Defense Troels Luden Poulsen has spoken today at a press conference about Denmark entering a 10-year agreement with Ukraine to continued military support and security situation in Europe. The package will bring the total of donations by Denmark to Ukraine to 33.3 billion. So this is what they're giving at the moment. A new 1.7 billion military aid package. That is huge. That is huge for Denmark to give. Absolutely huge. So good that they've moved on this. So good. Because this is going to be really important. The quote from them here is necessary to emphasize that if Ukraine are able to succeed on the battlefield, more donations must come now, the Prime Minister told reporters. This is in light of the continue to make further Danish donations in the hope that more countries will do the same, not in 6 to 12 months, but now when they need it is very, very big. Denmark, which together with Netherlands and the United States, is spearheading a coalition to help Ukraine establish a future air force, which expects its first delivery of F-16 fighter jets in Ukraine this summer. So those are going to be very good coming on along in this summer. But there is also, I think it's good to see what Zelensky said this, because this looks very recent as well. This coming from Financial Times. So US aid package needed within a month, Zelensky said. We already know they are having this on this. So it is really important that they get that. Really important that they get that aid, because they are 3 months without that. So let's see what he said here. Said, our position on the battlefield will be weaker without it, Zelensky has said. He gave examples of the US-made Patriot air defense systems, which has helped protect key cities from Russian missiles, which cost around 1.5 billion, and with which Ukraine could not afford without US support. Zelensky said that Europe could not replace the US in terms of weapon supply, pointing to the continent's shortage of air defense systems, although it said it could supply more long-range missiles. I do believe that is something we need to definitely give them more. Give them more Storm Shadows, because they have proved they can use those Storm Shadows pretty effectively when they get them. It will leave me wondering what world we are living in, Zelensky has said. But he added that he's confident that the US Congress would ultimately accept and pass the package, although Ukraine would search for others, loans, and experts, and exert other pressure on partners if needed, he said. Zelensky has characterized negotiating as a complete dead end for Ukraine and Ukrainians, saying the hardest bit was 2 years ago, and we have no alternative. If we lose, there will be no us, he said. And this is something that's worth reiterating, that to the Ukrainians at the moment, they are really coming across like this to them is a struggle for their national freedom, their national identity. So really important that that stuff gets across, and currently still hold up in the House on that. And bear in mind, 3 months late. This should have been passed 3 months ago. But there is already worrying points. The Speaker of the House might get ejected again. If that happens, you could see even more chaos, which just delays this even further. Um, yeah, Europe should never become so military dependent on the US. Not that we've had too much of a choice, but this is complete madness. Yeah, this is something I think with Trump, those NATO comments, yeah, they are. Europe has sort of gone, oh, we have to be able to operate on our own. We have to be able to defend ourselves on our own because there's no guarantee that you don't have these type of crazy things that happen. The West should give Ukraine Apache helicopters. Yes, I've said give them everything they can. Everything they ask for, give them it. At the moment, it's artillery shells, and it comes down to artillery production. That's the big problem that we're having at the moment. It's just that sheer scale of artillery production that's needed, and Europe just doesn't have the capacity to build that many artillery shells. There was the whole scandal in Germany right when this war kicked off, where the German defense, I think it was the German, I can't remember who exactly it was that came out with it, but they said at the rate that Ukraine are like using artillery shells, their stock of ammunition would be depleted within 2 days. And that's Germany. So it's very worrying. Yeah, actually, that's very true. Just like Britain in 1916. Yeah, Britain went through in 1916 World War One. We went through an artillery shortage because to get the massive supply we needed to buy from America. But America was looking at entering the war at that point. So they went, well, actually, we can't supply you with everything we need, with everything you need. So Britain ended up with an artillery shortage because America was joining the war because they need their own munitions. Ollie, as a Western socialist, this may sound a bit of an odd subject to bring up, but should we be moving our economy to potential war footing? EU countries too. That's a difficult question. That's really a difficult question. Because when you're talking about a war footing, or at least building a war economy, at that point, you are going to orientate everything in the economy to a war effort, to from civilian building of, well, toasters, to use the Hoi 4 analogy, to the actual building of ammo, weapons, equipment, and so forth. Maybe we don't need to be going to like a full scale, war footing, but be able to rebuild our capacity because we lost so much. We lost so much of our capacity to America because their defense industry just gobbled everything up. And when they did that, that has now left Europe very dependent on American and supplies of weapons from America. And we can now see we are paying for that decision. We're paying for that decision very, very much so on that front. But it's a hard question. I wouldn't say so, but I do agree on that at the moment. Nicholas Bell, Russia spends about 40% of its GDP on its armed forces. We spent 2%. Well, I think that's at the moment they are spending 40% of their GDP, which is a lot to spend. And a lot of people have said this, that regardless whether Russia wins this war or not, their economy is doomed. Because these sanctions aren't going to go. These sanctions aren't going to be lifted. They're not going to have an army to consume those supplies, or at least, in the field to be able to consume those supplies. So there'll be a war economy with no war to fight. Their economy is going to have a massive pile dive, Yeah, I wonder how much Ukraine regrets giving up their nukes. I am against nuclear proliferation. So the fact that Ukraine gave up their nukes for security guarantees, we've got to fulfill those security guarantees. If you are going to make security guarantees, then you've got to step up and fulfill those security guarantees when they need them. Otherwise, other countries are going to turn around and go, well, actually, we probably need a nuke. We talked about Venezuela and Guyana on Geoscope. If you don't know, Venezuela and Guyana literally staring each other down at the moment. Might Guyana suddenly think, would Venezuela be doing this if we had a nuke? And then that creates the problem of more nukes in the world. There's more problems, that things that might go wrong. We'll see. Steady on, people. This isn't a computer game. Very true. So we do put more effort into defense rebuilding. Should this be something that's spoken about more often? Yes, it should be. It really should be. We really do need that defense capacity to be rebuilt. And one of the things this would actually give a massive advantage for is you have the north. The north of England is a massive untapped manufacturing base that just isn't used by the UK anymore. So if you were to build new factories up in here, up in the north for defense, it would be a big boom for like the north as an economy. Sweden is the only country other than Russia with submarines in the Baltic Sea, potentially a massive asset for NATO. Can't we join? Well, we'll have to see what Turkey says, Erdogan. In fact, let's have a look at that. Let's see who's holding you up now. So it turns out it was Orban. Orban has now said that he's removing those for Sweden to join. Hungary says it's ready to approve Sweden's membership. That was 5 days ago. I can't see anything about Turkey. I'm sure Turkey had given and said okay quite a while ago. So it does look like it was just Orban and Hungary. Yeah, Sweden clears Turkish hurdle for NATO ascension. It doesn't look like it's far away, to be honest. It doesn't look like it's going to be far away. I can't see why it wouldn't be joining, honestly, too close to another. Yep. As an island, shouldn't our first priority be to increase the size of the Royal Navy, more frigates, and getting corvettes? Um, yeah, I've said this before. If we are going to build offshore infrastructure, offshore wind farms, um, geo, what they call now geotaps, where you sort of have you tap and you sort of put them off into the sea or something like that. Can't remember exactly what they're called now. Um, but those are again off sea infrastructure. We know that if one thing that Putin would do is he would target infrastructure in the sea. There's a lot of Russian submarines that could do a lot of stuff. Yeah, more submarines. Russia are literally singing under the sea as we speak. Yep. It's yeah, I mean, one of the big things is the undersea cables threat. That's the biggest thing because that is ultimately going to be the biggest target for Putin. But there is been another. I think it was Estonia again has said something recently as well. Sure, there was something here. Hmm. Oh, that's another good thing. That we have sent over 245 million pounds of munition package to boost their munitions, but that's going to be unfortunately delayed. Fortunately, but well, there you go. I'm sure the Estonian Prime Minister I might have to. Um, hmm, look for Estonia instead. Here it is. Let's find it. Here we are. So this was the Estonian Prime Minister. They said in a stark warning, Kelja Kallas said that war could expand very fast in Europe and no country would be left untouched if Vladimir Putin wins. The leader of Estonia, which borders Russia, called on Ukraine's allies to do their utmost to help. Kallas has also urged NATO countries to increase their defense spending. Currently, NATO members are asked to contribute 2% of their GDP to defense. Mr. Kallas wants NATO countries to increase their defense spending to 3% of their GDP. An interview on Sunday with Laura Kuenssberg, Ms. Callas said that Russia, pardon me, Russia will not continue if they lose in Ukraine, but they will continue if they win in Ukraine. That's why it is very important for all of us that we do our utmost to help them right now. Because what are the lessons from 1930s and the 1940s? We learned from the 1940s then that war can really expand to Europe. It goes very fast in Europe. No country will be left untouched. In 1988, all NATO countries spent more than 2% on their GDP on defense, some even over 6%. And why? Because the threat was real. When the Cold War was going on, there was a hot war going on in Europe now. Is there still some countries that think this really doesn't concern them? Remember, this is the person that went on the Russia's most wanted list after do that. When I be pagan, should what is the UK defense spending at the moment? We are at 2.2% currently. Hang on. UK. Okay, there we are. So as of now, we are at 2.2. And this is interesting on this because this is the military expenditure of the GDP historically of the UK. So as you can see at the moment, 2.2. And it's been 2.2 really since 2020, 2% in 2019, 1.9, 2018, 1.9, 2%, 2%, 2%, 2%, 2.5, 2.6, 2.4. But then it really started to drop in 1991. So in 1991, we went from 4.1 down past 3% for this, because this represents a big, what I've been talking about, the big loss in the 90s that happened when we lost a lot of that capacity that we used to have. We used to be all the way up here. This was in 1984. We were at 5.5%. And then, of course, we were even bigger. 1967, 6.2, 6.9, 7.1 in 1960. It just goes to show you how seriously we used to take like defense spending and what it actually used to mean, because we took it back seriously. But it's one of those points where, it's just something we need to take seriously again. It's the same for judiciary spending. We spend such a small amount on our courts. Let me have a look if I can find that. GDP and here we are. UK law court spending. Here we are. Oh, hang on. Is this even... show source? Oh, can't even show the source. Oh, damn. Let's see if we can find another one. I can find how much we actually spend that the Ministry of Justice spends, but I want to try and find the figure for actually how much we spent on like courts themselves, because that is really shocking. Really shocking that we spend so little on that. Gun expenditure on public order and safety. Ah, here we are. Yes, this is it. So we spend on our court system. Where can I find it? This is for 2021. What are we? Are we on here? Ireland, Greece, Spain, Italy, Lithuania, Luxembourg, Hungary, and Netherlands. Can't find it. Where is it? Is this it? This is quite shocking, but again, shouldn't surprise you. Government spends equivalent of just 0.042% of GDP on fighting economic crime, new analysis reveals. And again, that does mean £852 million, but that sounds a lot to me. That's a lot to you and I, but when you're sort of thinking of a country just spending that on stuff like that, that is a tiny amount on some of this stuff. Yeah. Criminals fail to fund cops. News at 11. Exactly. One of the things that has been put forward recently, and I think would actually be quite good, is the FBI, if they make a drugs bust, or they get like some form of like when they arrest criminals, they seize their assets as well. They actually get to keep 10%. The FBI, 10% of that bust, that money goes to the FBI. In the UK, those assets just get frozen permanently, and just nothing gets done with them. If we did that with our police, that they got to keep like 10% of all like criminal monetary assets seized through crime and stuff like that, that could be a big boom. That could be a big boom for like the UK police. And I think it would be good to see. Yeah, that is true. Seizure rules in the US are not something that we want. Lots of people end up basically getting robbed by the cops unless they can't afford to prove it. Isn't being used in a crime. That is true, but I think that you could make those rules better. And I think we could make those rules better, because I think there is a case for that being done. But the other thing I would want to do is open up the Treasury Department, because remember, the Treasury Department in America has their own police and enforcement officers. I think that would be good to give HMR as well. Giving HMR a crime and enforcement unit to go after financial crimes, That's something that should be, I think, looked into as well. Would that be a good idea to implement here in the UK as well? There's a ton of stuff we could look at, and how maybe we could implement it and stuff like that. But it's how you do it in a UK system and how you bring that forward to on that as well. But I do agree the seizure rules in America are a bit iffy. I will agree with you on that, but I think it will be interesting to see. We also don't really want balkanization of the US law enforcement system. HMR already has investigators; they just need more resources. Um, they don't have legal power; they've still got to go to the police. Um, so if you are a HMRC investigator and you find something off, then you've got to go to the police. You don't have enforcement power on that front. That's why the US Treasury Department has that. So if you find, someone, then you basically get visited by the accountant police. I think it might be again something that maybe we look into. Maybe do we need to give them, you know, enforcement powers? Maybe we don't need to make them like like the Treasury Department in the US. Give them their own system. Maybe it is they just need to be given that power to be able to do that, to be able to pursue legal arresting entity, because so far they can only have to go after people through the courts. So if you go after someone through the courts, that can trigger up a lot of time. And this is why you see a lot of people, if they do get caught by HMRC, they just pay the fine not to go through it. Yeah, National Crime Agency. So yeah, um it is the resources that is also a problem. I'll agree with you on that. It is one on that. They do need more resources, but also I would be for expanding HMRC. HMRC is the only governmental department that actually brings in money. HMRC employees pay for themselves. That would be something I would like to see, an expansion of HMRC, giving them more resources, giving them more people in their departments. That is something that I would like to see, a general re-expansion of the civil service. Although, bear in mind, the civil service has expanded. The biggest problem has been the lack of resources they have to be able to do some of these stuff, which has been the big problem with some of this, unfortunately. Oh yeah, you don't want to say mistake on your tax return is a instant crime. I'll agree with you on that. You don't want that. But yeah, it is. I think there's ways that you can have a look at doing some of this stuff, not implementing it fully, but I think there are some ideas we should look at and go, how successful are those? Can we do anything? And if something doesn't work well, can we find a way to implement it more properly? Uh, like I say, I do agree with you. There's a lot of stuff in the American system that is very, very bad. Um, like I say, we don't want to end up privatizing prisons anymore because we've seen how bad that could go with America. But funding the prisons would also be a big step forward, a massive step forward. Hadn't Labour all been looking at tax reform? Tax reform, says one angry pagan. I think they have. They've been talking about closing the tax loopholes, getting rid of like non-dom status. I think that would be a big step forward for a lot of things. Closing tax loopholes though can be a big difficulty sometimes, because in closing one loophole you might accidentally open up something else. The better thing would be The better thing would be to just rip up all the current rules as they currently stand and just rewrite them and start from scratch. But that in itself would be a massive undertaking to do. But we are at that point. Bear in mind, our tax laws, the current book dates back to 18 something. And that was the last time we went, right, we have all these tax laws, just time to, like, let's just burn the book and start again. So that will be something to sort of seriously look at. But it would be a massive undertaking to completely start from scratch and rewrite the tax code. But yeah, let's see if I can find that, because there's got to be here somewhere. Might be on the Secret Barrister. I can't remember if they had it now. But the other thing we need to do is we need to look at auditing as well. Auditing is a massive, massive problem the UK needs to tackle as well. Yep. Victorian tax laws. What is a Victorian in the UK? Well, yep. Craig, tax laws can tax laws can date back centuries. I remember the carbolic smoke ball case coming up. The problem is that they're evolutionary, heavily based on the law courts cleaning up the gray areas. Yep. So auditing is a massive issue. Oh, actually, let's go over something, because I wanted to go over this. I think it's well worth going over. Let me try and find it, because it's about the Freeport stuff. Let me see if I can find it. Oh, is this it? I think that might be it. Ah, yes, it is. Those of you will remember not too long ago went over Andy McDowell, who was the mayor up near the Teesside Freeport, and he's been a big going after the Teesworks, what's going on here. And he wrote a piece not too long ago that I was going to do a video on, but we might as well do it now, actually, because I think it's well worth going over. So he wrote this. There we go. Yes, if you give me a moment, I'll be back momentarily, and we'll go over this for a second. Yeah, there we go. Helpfully if I remember to turn the mic on. Thank you very much, Duke Vengeance. Yeah, thank you very much. But yes, thank you very much for the $5 super chat from Marcel84. Thank you very much. But I think going over this is well worth it. This is written by Andy McDowell. This is the mayor, who is one of the local mayors to the the Teesside is in his constituency. So he's been looking quite heavily into this. Been a big thorn in the side to the other Tories, trying to silence him at one point. If you saw the video we did on that, his letter to the speaker. So, for those of us working to expose the scandal surrounding the regeneration of the former steelworks site on the River Tees South Bank, known as Teesworks, last month has been eventful. Touted as the UK's largest free port and most agile and innovative industrial zone is now in reality, thanks to the oversight of the Tory Tee Valley's mayor, Ben Houchen, the project has proven little more than a cash cow for private developers closely associated with conservative politicians in the region. A set of recently published records and the High Court judgments have now confirmed where things stand. A handful of businessmen have been given the green light to extract upwards of £124 million, while the taxpayer has covered the cost, taken on the risk, and paid the price of around £500 million so far. So, yeah, honestly, there was nothing good about this Freeport right from the beginning, and it still just continues to just explode. This is one of the things that does need to be investigated, and if Ben Houchen, which bear in mind looks like he will probably lose his seat as well the next election, does need to be investigated as well. So these revelations about the mismanagement of the public money are not just a damning indictment of the dealings of the mayor, who was given a peerage in Boris Johnson's shameless resignation honours list for his role in the Teesworks project. that Lord Houchin of High Leven even had a chance to act in such a calamitous manner without any proper scrutiny and was cheered along the way by fellow Conservative politicians is indicative of a much wider systemic failures. It will be incumbent on the next Labour administration, hopefully to come soon in both Westminster and the Tees Valley Mayor's office, to right the wrongs of those now at the helm. As the great Michael Mermott once said in a meeting of the Labour Shadow Cabinet of which I was present, it's up to politicians to tell the truth about what's gone wrong and be bold about how to fix it. And with respect to the Teesworks scandal, this must now begin by getting the facts straight about what unfolded on Ben Houchin's watch. Concerns about Teesworks, including how many of the shares in the company were responsible for the regeneration effort, were shifted at no expense from a 50-50 private-public split to a 90-10 in favor of the private developers, and how the private developers were then granted the rights to income off the scrap first surfaced over 2 years ago in the pages of Private Eye. So this has been long going on this. It is going to be very much when Labour comes in. It wouldn't surprise me if there's more than one scandal they uncover from the Conservative Times. It would not surprise me if when Labour get in, they come in and they uncover a load of stuff. That would not shock me. So, in response, I stood up in the House of Commons chamber and demanded an independent investigation into Ben Houchin's governance. Sadly, despite my interventions in parliamentary and months of detailed reporting in Private Eye and in others in the press, the government ignored our pleas. And bear in mind, after the stuff with Private Eye came out, it is well worth praising the Yorkshire Post, because the Yorkshire Post has done also some fantastic reporting on this. They've done some fantastic reporting. And very recently, there was a really good piece in the Financial Times about what happened all this as well. That's something we need to solve as well. The tax status of the Isle of Man. You are completely right there. Yeah, that and the tax status of the Cayman Islands and things like that needs to be really sorted out on that one. So it continues. More than a year later, after I spoke in the Commons and raised reports of publicly owned land on the Teesworks site being sold off for £1 an acre, the story then picked up steam. Labour's front bench then got behind my demands, and the then Shadow Levelling Up Secretary, Lisa Nadley, wrote to the National Audit Office to ask for an inquiry to be launched. The next day, she was followed in that very same request by Ben Houchin himself. In turn, the chairs of the Commons Business and Trade Committee and Public Accounts Committee added their voices to the call. Yeah, in response to questions, the then Levelling Up Minister, Dana Davidson, wrote to me explaining the government had seen, quote, no evidence of corruption, wrongdoing, or illegality. She failed to mention in a letter that she had received a donation of over £2,500 from a shareholder in the project. Of course there was no wrongdoing. Of course there was no wrongdoing. There you go. It was only after Rishi Sunak blurted out that PMQs, seemingly by mistake, that the Levelling Up Secretary had, quote, already announced an investigation, and that the government was forced to do it just that. However, rather than the inevitable independent NAO inquiry with full investigatory powers, including assessment of the Teesworks project's value for money. We then got an independent assurance review. Michael Grove appointed the chief executive of Lancashire County Council, Andrew Redwell, to lead the panel in investigating with very tight parameters set by Gove himself. So this is something that should be absolutely called out. When they called into this review to say, hey, we want to look at this, Gove steps in and basically says, we'll allow you to do this review, but you can only look down at it at this very, very narrow scope. You can't examine any of this else. You can't look at any criminality. You can't look at anything else. You've just got to look down at this narrow scope. There's no power to compel witnesses. And we know at least of one person, according to the report, who refused to cooperate. So take that as you will. So, having then been told that the panel would report at the end of summer 2023, we had to wait until January the 29th of 2024 for the government's publication of the Tees Valley Review Report. That publication came after the first 2 months it was received by officials and weeks after ministers and, as it would seem, other Tory MPs had sight of it. In short, it has been one hell of a task getting even a modicum of accountability over the Teesworks scandal. In the meantime, on the 4th of January 2024, the full accounts for the joint venture of Teesworks Limited were made public, showing the company's net profits rose to £54 million in a, quote, exceptional 2022-2023 financial year, with millions extracted in dividends payments by the private partners. The accounts also confirmed reports denied by Ben Houchen that the developers had made £68 million from a plot of land the company had bought from the public sector for just £1 an acre. Yeah, nothing going on here, according to Ben Houchen. Ben Houchen, everything's all fine and dandy up on the Teesworks site, right? Nothing going on there, dodgy right? So these revelations were only then compounded by the contents of the Tees Valley Review Report. It is most damning about the report of the conduct of a public body I have read in my 45 years of involvement with politics and public service. Across its 96 pages, the panel set out a long string of criticisms about the project's failings in terms of governance, finance, and transparency. It makes over 28 recommendations, to which Ben Houchen and his team have until the 8th of March to respond. So we'll see what happens when they respond on the 8th of March, or if they do, what exactly they are going to say in response to that. The final sentence of the report reads, "The government and financial management arrangements are not themselves sufficiently robust or transparent to evidence value for money. It is clear that this matter must now be passed on to the National Audit Office for investigation in full." And that's what I would like to see as well. So any National Audit Office inquiry would be very wise to take in consideration the High Court judgment that was handed down on the 5th of February, which ruled against the South Tees Valleys Development Corporation after it had sued PD Ports, one of the largest investors in the region, in a dispute over the rights of access. It appears that the lawsuits itself cost the taxpayer many, many millions, having achieved absolutely nothing in the process. Instead of holding Ben Houchen accountable throughout this process, conservative politicians have kept cheering it on. Just day after day, rather than accept a clear case for National Audit Office inquiry into his conduct, Penny Mordaunt, leader of the House of Commons, was lauding his achievements. We can only assume that they know that any scrutiny of the value for money of the Teesworks will confirm the project, much like the PPE debacle, will have effectively functioned as a scheme for the industrial sale transfer of public resources into private hands. Teesworks, with its flogged off public assets now to a group of small time oligarchs, represents the culmination of decades of neoliberal economics in our deindustrialized heartlands. It epitomizes the broken post-Brexit Tory Britain. In the dying days of this government, generations to come will lament the many missed opportunities to create a sovereign wealth fund for the benefit of the people of Teesside out of the ashes of the once proud steelmaking industry. As we currently hope and pray, Ben Houchen and the Tory government in Westminster are all voted out of office later this year. It will have been their legacy on Teesside and beyond. So, yeah, that's the current state of the Teesworks. It's not good, honestly, but we have to wait until November, not November 8th, March 8th, sorry, for this to come out. That'll be very, very interesting. And like I say, for those of you private eye readers, if you read the Valentine's Day special that they did, there's a big section all about that, crying about how they feel very justified in all their reporting. So yeah, in fact, let's see if there's any more news. Let's have a look. Teesworks news. Tees Live. Ben Houchen says that he and his wife were harassed in the streets over Teesworks allegations. Well, it's very dodgy behavior. Yorkshire Post. Global expert in corruption worried by red flags in Teesworks report. Oh, let's have a read into that, because the Yorkshire Post, as we've said before, done some fantastic reporting on the Teesworks. Let's see what they've said. This. Global expert in corruption worried by red flags in Teesworks report. An expert in corruption has now criticized the Teesworks review, saying it is unlikely anything he has seen before in the world. Robert Barrington, professor of the anti-corruption practice at the Centre for Study of Corruption at the University of Sussex, told the Yorkshire Post about his concerns about the government review of alleged corruption at Teesworks, the regeneration project formerly at the Redcar Steelworks sites. Among Professor Barrington's criticisms of last month's report was that despite setting out to find it, there is still no definition of the term corruption. This means we do not really know what it was looking at, and making it now much harder to evaluate what a good job it actually did, he said. I've never heard of a corruption review. Usually it would be an investigation or an inquiry. It is incredibly thorough on the governance, but it was not possible under this design to succeed in finding corruption. As you've already said before, Gove narrowed the review, as was said there, so much they couldn't actually investigate that side of it. They can't actually go it because it's not in their scope to do. Even if they wanted to do it, Gove could come back and just say, well, sorry, we're cutting that out of the final thing because, I said that wasn't in for the review. So sorry, out it goes. He also recognized the government's terms of reference, including the line, the department has seen no evidence of corruption, wrongdoing, or illegality. He said, this is highly unusual to commission a report and for it to say in the terms of reference that you do not see the evidence. President Ballington said, it's challenging people to defy you. The question of resourcing is one of concern for the professor, as he has compared the over 1,400 documents seen by the Teesworks review with the millions usually gone through as part of investigations by the Serious Fraud Office. WhatsApp is at the forefront of the COVID inquiry. Now, that's how you find the hidden stuff, but it's only mentioned once in the review when an individual giving evidence proactively offered to share a message to back up a statement. The professor insists that he is not critical of the panel who authored the report, but who he said are experts in other areas besides corruption. He said it wouldn't be a problem if they had been asked to look specifically into corruption. However, he directed the criticism to the government for its response to the report, specifically for the ministerial statement, which said it has been proven comprehensively through an independent review that there was no corruption and there was no illegality. The Department for Levelling Up Housing and spokesperson community said the panel invited anyone with evidence to present that, and having reviewed and investigated over a number of months, no evidence was found of corruption. Because of course, if you have evidence of corruption, if you've taken part in this, of course you're going to come forward with here's all my evidence, looking into all this corruption. It's because the committee was not compelled to be able to do that. You could not call witnesses, and we know that there was one person who refused to engage with the committee. They couldn't even call the two private individuals who were part of the company that is involved for much of that private funding to come and testify because they couldn't do it. So the professor also questioned the UK's ability to detect corruption, saying that it is naive about the issue in its own backyard. In a blog post, he wrote, the British tendency to assume corruption happens overseas but not home, and with the red flags that this report now reveals, there can be no doubt that this project would not qualify for British overseas aid development. He said, for all its other merits, this is not a report about corruption, and certainly not an investigation into corruption. And also, it is not a coincidence that no evidence of corruption was found. So we'll see if any evidence does come forward about that in it. But yeah, it's going to take certainly Ben Houchen being removed as mayor, but also like say a Labour government to authorise the National Audit Office to do an inquiry as well. Oh yeah. This was also happened as well. No cabinet meeting. This was 5 days ago as well. This came out as well. Disbelief as Tees Valley Combined Authority cancels its first cabinet meeting since Teesworks report. So here's the thing: if you have all that report that doesn't look very good, Just cancel your council meeting. So a council leader is in disbelief over the decision to cancel the first TCA combined cabinet meeting since the release of the Teesworks report, but the authority says an action plan is currently being worked on to implement the recommendations. The meeting planned for the 15th of March was scrapped due to there being, quote, no substantive agenda of items requiring a decision. Wait, you've just had a massive report about this, but there's no items requiring a decision, nothing to talk about. Anyway, according to the TCA website, the cabinet would not have been held first since the release of the controversial Teesworks report, and of course, the final to take place before the mayoral elections this May. The result of the Teesworks investigation report issued last month cleared leaders of any corruption or illegality, but was far from a clean bill of health, raising now concerns over the governance, transparency, and the management of public funds. So there was, might have, we couldn't find any because we weren't allowed to have a look at any of that evidence, but, we are going to raise concerns over the government's transparency and the management of public funds. That suggests, corruption and illegality going on. Then it set out the 28 recommendations from the author to consider. A spokesperson said that the meeting was stood down because there are no decisions to be made. Per the TCA in March, it added that there was, quote, standard practice when there was, quote, nothing to be decided at a meeting. The authority has since done with establishment procedures. Redcar and Cleveland Council leader Alistair Alec Brown, who was a member of the cabinet alongside Millsborough Mayor Chris Cook and the Stoughton Council leader Councillor Bob Cook of Hartlepool, the council leader, and Mike Young, and leader of the Darlington County Council leader Speaker Harker, said that he received several messages about the cancelled meeting online. Councillor Brooke took to Facebook to voice his disbelief over this news, claiming that leaders had not been consulted on the decision. He said, I have written to the Tees Valley Mayor, Mr. Houchin, the CEO of the TVA, to express my disbelief after the report with over 28 recommendations has been published and we have nothing to discuss. The TCSA has then written to the Levelling Up Secretary Michael Gove by the March 8th with their response to the Teesworks. Councillor Brown told Tees Valley Live, he said, I am certainly very insistent that we have a meeting. We need to have a meeting by next week, or at least 2 weeks before the response to Michael Gove set on March the 8th. We can't have been consulted about the council meeting because there hadn't been any contact with any of the council leaders. So cancel the meeting and just don't tell people it's not happening. Gee, no corruption going on here, guys. Councillor Brown also added that there was a whole referral of things to discuss at the meeting, saying that the leaders absolutely needed to reschedule a date. Chris McEwen, Labour's candidate for the Tees Valley Mayor, also weighed in on the criticisms, saying, it seems incredible that the Conservative Lord Houchin will not meet to discuss the Teesworks inquiry with his own cabinet, not because the report itself poses serious questions about the openness and transparency. So, confusion over this meeting now left some on social medias asking Mr. Houchin directly on Facebook how he planned to inform stakeholders of the response to the Tees Valley Works report. Mr. Houchin said in response, it is not a definitive answer on what changes we are making, but on the processes that we are going through to consider them. He added, and then there is a group of officers from the TCA of all 5 authorities and the South Tees Development Corporation working on an action plan to implement their recommendations. The TCA statement said in response, in relation to the review, there is a working group of statutory officers from all five authorities currently working on an action plan to implement the recommendations. The output of this will be brought to the Cabinet for leaders to consider, but this involves considering potential constitutional amendments and protocols and getting guidance from government on a number of points that are likely to take some time to complete. We will, of course, share this output with the Cabinet Ministers as it becomes available, but this work will not be rushed and will make sure all recommendations are considered in detail and in conjunction with the relevant stakeholders. Recommendations require full consideration and need to be worked through properly, involving all local authorities who have been working with us since the report came out. Yeah, totally totally no um, dodgy stuff going on there, right? Totally no sort of stuff on that. Anyway, P, good evening to you. Pretty Bird, greetings to you as well. Yeah. The Conservatives reducing crime by redefining it as a not a crime to one financially lucrative loophole at a time. Yeah. There is absolutely nothing that I want to discuss might be more accurate. Very true, Craig. Very, very true. Lefty Boater, A up to you from the wrong side of the hills. Well, I say that I've just been over on your side. So so yeah, tell you what, we'll go to 8 o'clock. Screw it. We'll go to 8 o'clock. Let's keep on going. Yeah, you are right. Blue Badger, hello to the newcomers. Hello to the newcomers if you are new. When I'm campaigning, I'm also worried about the many standing stones in Dartmoor under the purview of the Freeport owners. I would be very surprised if they could get away with moving any of those standing stones. Standing stones like that are like, national heritage sites and stuff like that. They would not be allowed to touch that. Ooh, what's this? Bakura, hello to you. Did you hear Dan Wootton isn't being investigated further by the police? So naturally, he's being insufferable about it. I hadn't heard that. Let's have a look, see what that says. Looks like, according to this, they've sent a letter to the Dan Wootton's going to sue them. This might turn out to be a massive mess, regardless whatever you might think of Dan Wootton. We'll have to see how that goes out, but this does not look good. So this from the Byline Times. 2 police forces to take no further action against Dan Wootton as GV News presenter reveals Police Scotland as well as the Met were investigating. Let's see what they had to say about this. GV News presenter Dan Wootton revealed yesterday for the first time that it was under investigation by Police Scotland as well as Metropolitan Police. He announced that both probes by forces have now been concluded. Byline Times sought clarification from Police Scotland about this decision, and a spokesperson this afternoon said, "Our inquiries are now complete, and a no report will be submitted to the prosecutor fiscal. And a no report will be submitted to the prosecutor fiscal at this time. We reserve the right to review this decision in future should any new information become available or reported will be fully investigated." Byline Times has not previously reported on any investigation by Police Scotland. The Metropolitan Police spokesperson also confirmed that it was taking no further action regarding the unspecified allegations of sexual offences committed by a man aged in his 40s. They added, Officers will assess all information available and establish whether any criminal offence have taken place. An investigation was commenced into these allegations. All parties involved have now been advised that no further action will be taken and there will be no arrests made during the investigation. GB News has not commented, but Wootton remained suspended from the channel following a misogyny row last September over an on-air exchange he had with actor-turned-activist Lauren Fox about a female journalist. It comes amid the internal investigation involving external lawyers by Wootton's former employer, News UK, publisher The Sun, relating to his time working there between 2008 and 2021. Spokesperson for the company confirmed the London law firm Kingsley Napley was interviewing former colleagues. It is still not clear whether News UK will make any of its findings public. Per a letter from the Sun's editor-in-chief, Victoria Newson, to the House of Commons, the Digital Media and Sports Committee, which had asked about one affair last July. So, I'm not going to lie. I think Dan Wootton is going to go after everyone now. So, there's these two. Here's there's this one here that we'll go over. But yeah, this doesn't look very good. Yeah, Byline Times and Vorderman and Mattis face threat of legal action from Dan Wootton. Wootton's lawyer cites privacy precedent from Bloomberg as versus ex-CS Supreme Court judgment. Dan Wootton is now seeking damages, an apology, and a retraction of the articles from the Byline Times as it reported on the fact that he was being investigated by the police. Press Gazette understands that Wootton's legal team is also writing to Carol Vorderman and the former Newsnight presenter Emily Mattis over statements made by them on Twitter. The suspended GB News presenter is also considering legal action against other media outlets over articles published in October of last year. What revealed on Tuesday that two police forces, the Met Police and Police Scotland, have concluded investigations against him and will be taking no further actions. The Press Gazette understands that Wootton's lawyer, Donald Bailey, has also written a letter before action to the Byline Times over its reporting citing the Bloomberg versus ZXC Supreme Court judgment of 2022. This case established the precedent that those at the center of police investigations have a right to privacy until the point at which they either charged with an offense. The Byline Times reported that Wootton was the subject of a Met Police investigation in October 23. After the force, it had confirmed that it was investigating allegations involving a man in his 40s. The Guardian, The Mirror, NewQuest, and The National also reported on the Wootton investigation in October, only to take down the stories after being threatened with legal action by his legal team. The fact that the police investigation can now be safely reported after Wootton himself put the matter into the public domain. He said in a statement on Wednesday, he said, "I have now been completely cleared in two investigations by the Metropolitan and Scottish Police, who have confirmed they will be taking no further action." He added, "It is now high time that our ancient rights were once again upheld. Chief among them, the right to be assumed innocent until found guilty in a court of law." The Bloomberg versus ZXC case was centered on a 2016 report in which Bloomberg named a number of businessmen at large in the UK public company accused of involvement in bribery and corruption. The publisher was then reported on the contents of a private letter. A woman won an injunction preventing the publication and a £25,000 in damages. So we'll see what happens there. But I don't think that's going to be good for Byline Times on this. The Wootton case differs from those two precedents because allegations against him were already in the public domain when the fact the police investigation was being reported. The Byline Times first reported on allegations against Wootton in July of 2023. Wootton has then responded on GB News in a 6-minute monologue. Wootton then told GB News viewers he had made errors of judgment in the past, but that criminal allegations being made against him are simply untrue. So, we'll see what happens in the case of Dan Wootton. Billy Crenshaw, new evidence about to emerge. We'll see. We'll see what happens. We'll see what happens in this case. But honestly, it does look like the whole Dan Wootton case is becoming a bit of a mess, unfortunately. Which is a bit sad. But there you go. These things happen sometimes, unfortunately. But I think he's going to come after all these people now. And that was about 2 days ago. We'll see what happens there. But it would not surprise me if it becomes a bit Sue happy. Would not surprise me. Can you really come after the newspapers reporting on that? He seems to be going after it on a privacy precedent. He's not specifically going after the allegations. That's something. But he's specifically going after, or at least trying to say that, look, they reported on it when it should have been a private matter. But remember, he's the one who came out on GB News, made that big announcement. But that's what he seems to be suing on, that this was meant to be a private matter based on those two past precedents, and we'll see what happens. Like I say, I'm not a legal expert, but we'll see. But we will see. We will see what happens. Oh, you know who we should check in on? We haven't checked in on a while. Do we want to go after? Are we? Are we prepared? Are we prepared? Because we haven't been here for a while. It's Jeff Taylor. Let's see if Jeff's got a good video for us. Oh no, Islam now controls UK politics. Dare we do it? Dare we do it? I don't know if we could. I'm just EU collapse imminent. Of course, nothing much changes there. England is dead. He's a dictator. Sadiq Khan's new tax. Oh, Jeff Taylor in London again. We're going to war. Tell you what, let's watch this. We're going to war. Why are we going to war, Jeff? What are we going to war, Jeff, with? What are we warring about with? Hang on. It was always the case that we had to speed up Jeffrey because he spoke very, very slowly. Oh, hang on. I did. Hang on. Let me just make sure, because I did need to make sure that I ticked the... Yes, I did. Let's see. Let's see what Jeff Taylor thinks and why we're going to war.
Hello there.
God, I've missed that. God, I've missed that. Why has he got a big paperclip? Have I missed a big piece of Jeff Taylor lore? Because he's got a paperclip there on his suit. Have I missed something about his lore? Why is he wearing a paperclip? I don't understand, Jeff. I don't understand. Why the big paperclip?
The warnings of impending war are coming thick and fast right now. But why has it taken this long for people to start voicing real concerns? And there you have...
God, the little Jeff Taylor dance. Oh, I've missed covering Jeff. I have missed Jeff so much. Before we continue, is Jeff coming through all right? Can you hear him? He's not echoing through or anything like that. Before we continue. Bakura, yep, I can hear. Excellent. Jeff is coming in fine. Excellent. All right, we'll continue.
Have it. The assessment is that Vladimir Putin's Russia will attack NATO in 5 to 8 years' time. Well, according to the German Defense Minister Boris Pistorius, anyway. Talking to Der Tagesspiegel, he said that the US...
I love that. According to Der Tagesspiegel. Now, I know I have problems pronouncing, foreign names, but that sounded a really strange pronunciation to me. I hope I don't come through like that.
The UK and the EU hear threats from the Kremlin almost every day, so we have to take into account that Vladimir Putin might even attack a NATO country one day. We have to learn to live with danger again and prepare ourselves, militarily, socially, and in terms of civil defence. And remember the Swedish Civil Defence Minister Carl Oskar Bolin a few days ago calling for his country to brace for war, and the chief of NATO.
Yep. It's not just that as well. It's the fact Donald Trump saying, we ain't going to come to your defense, undermining the whole NATO collective response. I wonder if Jeff has said anything about Donald Trump saying, we won't come to your defense if Putin attacks a NATO country. You know, I'll even encourage it. That completely undermines NATO defense. Now, bear in mind, if I'm correct, Jeff used to serve. He was a Royal Navy. He was in the Royal Navy. I don't know exactly what he was, but we know he was in the Royal Navy because he regularly goes to the HMS Sheffield Memorial Day every year. So I believe he was in the Navy at some point or another. Yeah. Jeff's pronunciation is glorious. It really is. Really is. It's Mr. Protocol again. Yep.
NATO's military committee, Dutch Admiral Rob Bauer, saying we need a war-fighting transformation in NATO. While the Estonian Prime Minister Kaja Kallas believes the time frame for a Russian confrontation could be as little as 3 to 5 years away. And all that talk of conscription that abounds. Now, I would say we've been hearing about threats made by Russia against Western Europe for at least a decade. But it's only very recently that this has been ramped right up to extraordinary levels.
Yes, because Putin invaded Ukraine, Jeff. Putin invaded Ukraine, and it suddenly made a lot of people go, oh, maybe we should actually take those threats, seriously now. So, a little bit of context as to why people are taking those threats seriously now.
Sounds more like an instant return of the Cold War. And just to point out that this is about Russia. No one's talking here about China, North Korea, and Iran. Just Russia. But most of...
Yes, because it is just Russia that has started the biggest war on the European soil since World War II.
of that new Russian threat information seems to be coming from NATO chiefs and EU and UK ministers. Now, don't get me wrong. I want to see the UK beef up its army.
I have to say, there's some people questioning his speed. We have had to speed Jeff up because this is what Jeff sounds like at normal speed. This is at 1.25. This is Jeff at normal speed.
Armed forces considerably. But what I worry about here is the possibility, or more likely probability, that the Eurocrats have spotted an opportunity to use fear-mongering about...
I like that. Jeff almost rhymed. Jeff almost rhymed. The Eurocrats have spotted an opportunity or a possibility or an opportunity. And he's going to, I guarantee you, I can willingly bet money. I can willingly bet money he's about to mention EU army conscription. We're about to go down that rabbit hole again. Yes. I've been speeding it up this whole time. No. Speed back up. Speed back up. Oh, trust me. We're going to go even faster. We're going to go even faster. Are you ready? We're going to go up to 1.5. Let's see if we can get almost Jeff sounding sort of normal speaking at this point.
About Putin and Russia to nudge the people of Europe into quickly accepting a centrally controlled EU army. Something...
Yes! Yes! Didn't I tell you he was going to say it? Oh. Didn't I tell you he was going to say it? Didn't I tell you he was going to do it? EU army, let's go. And to be honest, here's the thing, Jeff. This whole EU, this whole invasion of Ukraine, if anything, it justifies an EU defense pact, some sort of central command structure like NATO has. And bear in mind, this wouldn't undermine NATO because all these countries would still be NATO. It would help defend these European countries a whole lot more because then we wouldn't have to rely on America. Then, of course, Jeff's not going to mention that. He's going to fearmonger, of course, about the EU and the dreaded EU army.
That our UK establishment is chomping at the bit to join, despite Brexit. In fact, I think Brexit has made the Westminster ambitions of joining the EU armed forces structure all the stronger because it represents the fastest way back into the fold for them. So
not even a recognition of the consequences of what is going on in the world right now, about why an EU defense structure would probably be very, very, good at this moment, at the moment. Yep. I've got brains, you've got the look. Let's make lots of money. The EU's military response, according to Jeff. Yep. He naturally just slows down time. Oh, yeah. Yep. Jeff is quite reliable on some topics. Oh, he's indeed. He is indeed. Momox Chicken, turn up the speed for max laughs. Should we go warp speed? There we go. 2 times as fast. Let's go, Jeff. Let's go. Let's speed through this. I can already pretty much predict what he's going to say. So we've already mentioned EU army. This is going to be used as a justification post-Brexit to rejoin the EU. You'll probably mention something about conscription and that British people are going to be conscripted into an EU army, where, again, Jeff conveniently forgets the UK has had conscription at various points in its history, but for some reason, bad when Europe does it, good when the UK does it. But we'll see what else he's going to say.
There are a couple of anomalies that make me question all this suddenly newfound Russophobia. Number one is that for Russia to attack a NATO country...
Hang on, yeah, he's too fast now. He's too fast. We'll go down to 1.5.
Putin and his military officials would want to be 100%, or as near as damn it, certain that NATO would never be put in a position to deploy its nuclear arsenal.
NATO is in that position at the moment, Jeff, with Donald Trump saying, I am not going to defend a potential invasion. That takes off America's nuclear arsenal. That leaves Britain's, Germany's, and France's nuclear arsenal. And at that point, we have not made similar commitments to extend our nuclear umbrella to the rest of Europe, which I think is something that we should do, because that will lower nuclear proliferation if we do that, so that other countries do not go and get their own nuclear weapons. They can sort of rely on, I suppose you would call it, the European triad of France, Germany, and to have their own nuclear weapons. Oh, doesn't Germany have nuclear weapons? I thought Germany had nuclear weapons. Hold on. I might be wrong on that then. I was sure Germany had nuclear weapons. Germany has new... So yeah, I do apologize. I am wrong on that. So Germany does have the ability to produce nuclear weapons, but it hasn't. But it is part of the nuclear weapons sharing agreements under NATO, and it shares weapons with nuclear weapons with the United States. So at that point, it is down to us and France. It is down to us and France having nuclear weapons. That's what we're down to at that point. Because remember, in a NATO potential situation, Trump could pull those nuclear weapons away from Germany. That's a problem. That becomes a problem. That's a very big problem. So yeah, Putin might just go, "Hey, why not? We're going in." He can risk it. Yeah, that's true as well. They could be replaced with UK or French ones, though. You are right at that point. But that does mean that the UK and France would have to then produce more nuclear weapons to be able to give them to Germany. Which, as I said, I'm not for nuclear proliferations. I don't want more nuclear weapons making. But it is a problem. I will admit. Oh, that's yeah, that's let's just make me worry even more now. Yeah, there we go. worry for another time. Din Lockwood. We have the leftist Trump saying to the GUP, "We need Trump back in the White House. The Tory government is totally Russian at this point." Well, I wouldn't call them totally Russian, but you know they could be doing a lot more, and they're not, which is frustrating. But there you go. Anyway, back to his points.
But because no one can ever be sure of anything in war, then how could he ever be sure about that? Unless he has a method of neutering our nukes, or someone on our side has assured him of a zero nuclear response as long as he geographically behaves himself, i.e. he restricts himself to only taking on certain NATO countries.
You mean like Donald Trump? You mean like Donald Trump? Who just did that? Jeff, why aren't you talking about what Donald Trump said? Jeff. Oh.
A very difficult thing to believe, but not impossible. Anomaly number 2 is that we have just been told by the EU Commission President Ursula von der Leyen at the WEF conference in Davos that Russia is not winning in Ukraine and it is suffering economically. And there have been stories fed to us about Russia scraping the bottom of the armaments barrel. If that's the case now, how will Putin be in a position to attack us in 5 years' time?
Russia has a very, very big industrial capacity when it comes to creating weaponry. We have seen Putin step up artillery production massively so, because the Ukraine war is a war of artillery. That is what is being determining this war. On the battlefield, it is artillery. That is what has allowed the Ukrainians to hold off the Russians, is what has allowed them to make advances against the Russians. It is what has been the biggest killer in this war, death from artillery. So Putin is cranking up those numbers. We've seen that Putin is turning his army from a mobilizing, mechanized army to a more Russian army based on boots on the ground and artillery. This seems to me to say he wants to, well, start a war, potentially, maybe one of these countries, maybe take as much territory as he can, and then just hold on to that territory. Because at the moment, we're showing, well, hey, if you can last 2 years, you might get that country. Yeah, exactly. Putin has issues that he's had to buy some crap shells from North Korea. Do you want to see the crap shells from North Korea? Let's find those. Let's find those artillery shells. There's got to be one somewhere. Ah, here it is. So I won't take off Jeff for the moment, but we'll show you this. So this is what happened when the Russians cut open the artillery shells from North Korea. There should be no gaps. We learned this in World War One. So effectively, what happens now with these Russians fire these North Korea artillery rounds? They're going to go anywhere. They're either going to land short or they're going to land far. They're not going to be accurate. And in a war where this is becoming one of artillery duels and counter battery fire, where the Ukrainians have become masters of counter artillery fire, they are far better at shooting and scooting and returning fire on these Russians. They're proven to be well better. Duke Vengeance, what is that? Well, this is what happens when you open up an artillery shell. When you take off the explosive ordnance, and you look into the bottom of the barrel. In fact, there should be a better one. So that's what you're looking at. And you can see at the top there. The actual head of the warhead, the explosive, would be up above. And then in that's where all the explosives are. The thing is, from what you can see here, the explosives are all that is explosive material. And the thing is, that should be full. Like, that should be full. There should be no gaps. Otherwise, this artillery shell is going to go land far, or it's going to land incredibly short of where you want this shell to go. Which basically makes any Russian artillery crew firing these artillery shells completely ineffectual. Yes, they're still firing an artillery shell, but that artillery shell is not going to go where the artillery crew wants it to go. So we'll get back to Jeff. There we go. Remember, in about 5 years' time, Poland will have about 1,000 K2PL battle tanks ready to go. Good luck, anyone versus that. Oh, indeed. Oh, indeed. Poland, the Texas of Europe, arming itself to the teeth. It is getting prepared, baby. They bought and have been the biggest buyer of the HIMARS systems from America. They bought a ton of HIMARS from America after the success of the Ukrainians that they've been using them. And remember, the Ukrainians only have about 15, 20 HIMARS systems. Poland has over 500 of them now. They have over 500 of them. And I think they're getting more. So yeah. Russia's armed forces, its state of all its stuff, the ability to be able to equip all these troops puts immense pressure on the Russian economy to be able to do that. That's why earlier, I forget who mentioned it in chat, Russia's spending like 30 to 40% now of its GDP on its armed forces. Yep, Poland and Finland, both are impenetrable. That's but do the Polish artillery regiments have a bear? Who knows? Where is what was it? Was it Wojak the bear? Who was the bear called? Oh no, that's the meme. Poland. Poland Bear, World War II. Yep, that's it. Wojciech, that's it. Nicknamed the Soldier Bear. So yeah. So maybe, who knows? This is where the Russians attack Poland, and Poland just releases thousands of armored bears. little did they know Russians were preparing for HIMARS technology, and Poland had bear technology. Donald Tusk, release the mechanical bears. But anyway, let's get back to Jeff. Let's see what else he's got to say.
So what are these people saying? That nuclear deterrence doesn't work? Or at least doesn't work against Russia? Because it's as sure as hell working in Russia's favor at the moment, because no one dare send troops into Ukraine to help them defeat Putin because of the threat from the Russian nuclear arsenal. So surely nuclear deterrence does work.
Does it, though? Bear in mind, Putin has said repeatedly, many red lines, that if we give them tanks, if we give them long-range missiles, that if we provided them with anti-air batteries, that this would be crossing a line and he would drop a nuke. He would have no choice but to launch a nuke every single time. He's not launched it. So I don't know about you, but I think it's Russia's nuclear deterrent and the state of the Russian nuclear missiles that I think are very, very much in doubt. Very, very much so in doubt.
And are they admitting that all those much vaunted sanctions aren't stopping Putin from getting the money and arms he needs to take on the West?
No, they're not. They have said repeatedly, time and time again, sanctions are working. The fact that you've got an egg shortage right now in Russia, that you are lucky if you go to a supermarket and you can get 2 eggs. My God, what kind of land of plenty are you living in? And in Russia, you can go to the supermarket and buy 2 eggs. And if you're really lucky, 3 eggs. What type of paradise they must be living in under these sanctions.
Now, I'm only asking questions like this because our politicians have proven themselves to be very manipulative and evasive in the past. Think face coverings, stay-at-home orders, and arm intervention mandate.
Oh dear. Did Jeff turn into a anti-lockdown guy? An anti-mask guy while we didn't cover him? Oh no. Oh no, Jeffrey, why? Why, Jeff? Why? Why, Jeffrey? Why did you do this to me? Oh.
And Germany definitely was not talking like this 5 years ago while they busily sucked up Russian oil and gas. Now, one way of temporarily boosting an economy...
Because 5 years ago, no one really took the idea that Putin would actually go ahead and do something crazy like this. And oh look, now he has.
Economy is to get involved in an arms race, where those countries with huge industrial capacity stand to make a lot of dosh, from the taxes of other countries, of course. So what's the truth? Is Putin being ground down?
I like that. You can make a lot of money by taxing other people. So that's a new one. That's a new one on me. That if we have an EU army, Germany will make a lot of money by taxing the UK taxpayer to make weapons. Jeff, you do realize the UK is part of the F-35 program. We are literally paying America right now to make us new airplanes, to make us new fighter aircraft. Are you aware of that, Jeffrey? Jeffrey, can you hear me, Jeffrey? Oh.
Or is the Russian bear waking up? We seem to have flip-flopped at an electric pace from one position to the other. But to take on we were beating him with all our bright shiny new kit, but now he's suddenly a massive threat to us, Vladimir Putin, in just a few years would, if true, take massive coordination.
No, what we are worried about is the fact that if Putin wins, this empowers him. He sees this as an opportunity that he can go into a NATO country because Donald Trump might be president, or maybe he can go in, foment, do various things like he did in Ukraine, because the Baltic countries have some very similar, areas of high Russian-speaking populations where he could go in and just say, well, I'm just liberating these Russian-speaking people who clearly want to be part of Russia.
And I get the feeling that we in Europe will be told that the US has gone cold on NATO and will be busy elsewhere with China, Iran, and North Korea, giving our politicians and officials the chance to quickly merge Europe's armed forces so as to prepare to fend off Russia. You get the idea.
They would not just merge the armed forces like that. They would not just merge them together.
Yeah. And once they are merged, they will stay merged, taking the merging of the nations with them.
Once they are merged, they will stay merged, and they will take the merging of the countries with them. I am sorry, I didn't realize that we were all American now, because after all, we're all in NATO. So aren't all our NATO armed forces merged with America? I had no idea that we would be voting for a new governor. I didn't realize that was the position Rishi Sunak really occupied. What? Oh. Jeff Taylor sounds like some poor soul's crazy uncle. Oh, yes. Oh, yes. oh, yes, he is.
But they're also talking about business having to be ready to participate. And we in the UK need to be very mindful of this and only cooperate, not enlist. We in the UK do need to rearm, but for our own ends, and not just to protect the European Union, and through its military procurement processes, fill the boots of Germany, France, Italy, and Spain with British gold. And now let's talk about...
Wait, what? What? Yes, fill the boots with British gold. What? What? Oh dear. Oh dear. Oh dear, Jeffrey. Oh dear. Yeah. I wonders what his views on cryptocurrencies are. I dread to think what Jeff's views on cryptocurrency is. I dread to think. Oh, yeah. It's like they're French swashbuckling pirates stealing your booty. Yeah, we should totally cooperate, but we shouldn't do anything else. Well, what do you think? These things we are doing are, what is NATO but a cooperative alliance? Oh, they're still so scared about. Oh my god. Oh no. Jeff Taylor's NFTs, anyone? Oh, I have said, actually, and I have said, the more people we get joining the Pony Club, the more badges and emojis we get unlocked. I do want to make a special one, a special Jeff Egg emoji of Jeff Taylor's face, because I think that would be very appropriate for our channel. So if you would like to see that happen, join the Pony Club. Links down below. Oh dear. Anyway, that's been our Sunday casual stream. I hope you've enjoyed that. Hope you've enjoyed that. Because that's been, yeah, it's been fun. It's been a while since we've peeked in on Jeff Taylor. It's been a while since we peeked in on old Jeffrey. But thank you very much for joining us today. Watch out for more videos. I think I've just dropped another one at 6 o'clock today. So if you haven't seen that, you want to see more of me, go check that out. It's going to be quite fun. As always, we've got more videos coming out during the week, etc. If you are new, hit up the like, hit up the share button on your way out. And as always, guys, thank you very much for all the support you guys do show the channel. And of course, we'll see you all next time.